Alright, welcome back to Chaotic Torture RC, where we've been building a scx10 2000 Jeep Cherokee. On this part of the build, I am now where I'm going to build the shocks, and then from the shocks we go to the transmission. On camera, I'm only going to build the one shock because there's really no need to waste your all's time with me building four, but I will go through the assembly process with you all on video for those that are following along with the build that may be building these videos later down the road or just curious on how the axial icon shocks go together. So as per the manual goes, we're going to need one of our aluminum shock towers. I'm going to set it right here on the middle of the page. And then we're going to need a collar. Clip that off the parts tree. And it will thread on like so. And when you do it, it's got a directional cup on it. Let me see if I can zoom in some. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but it's kind of notched. You want the notched end that's placed like that sitting in the bottom, and that way when you put a shock spring in there it kind of slips over that. Okay, and next we're going to need the bottom. That is off the same plastics parts tree that I clipped the cup from. And what we're going to do here is in the bottom of the shock here, we're going to put one red washer there, and then it's calling for a black plastic spacer, which is on this parts tree here. It's the thin spacer there. Let me cut that off. You'll have to excuse me if I sniffle some. Still getting over cold and dealing with some allergies. Anyways, you place the black spacer in there. Then it calls for another red ring. And they may be tight getting in there, but they will sit there. And then once you got that on there flush, then you just tighten that in. That's going to be the bottom assembly of your shock. Now for this part, you're going to want to take one of your shock shafts that they send with the kit. You got a threaded bottom and two notches at the top. At the top, what the notches are for is these C-clips, or actually E-clips, I'm sorry. They're tiny. I will zoom in right there on the base of my fingertip there. They are tiny, so be careful when working with them. What I do is I'll zoom back out here, try to give you all the best angle of how I approach this part of the build. I will hold them very lightly in the end of my needle nose pliers, line it up with the bottom hole, and set it there. And when you're working with these, try to do it over a magnetic area or a table. I used to use a towel while doing this in case this piece slips while you're doing it and you drop it. You will be able to find it easier because these things are so tiny, and if you slip while trying to clip it in, they will spring and pop and fly in various directions, as that one just did. So see, even on camera showing that it happens. But since I'm working over the plastic manual here, when they fall straight down, it's just easy to pick back up and slide. This is the part I dislike the most about shock assembly with these kind of shocks. Anyways, get it on, hold it braced over, got it on that time. And then you're going to grab this parts tree where you grabbed the O-ring from earlier. You're going to have these little bit thicker, almost octagon shaped pieces. Trim them off. Take and place that piece over there just as so. And what this part here is, it's a piston assembly, and that just allows to it adds tension when the oil flow is going through the shock when it compresses and decompresses. Some of y'all that have built shocks in the past will have the ones that have they'll have 2-hole, 3-hole, depending on the brand of shock that you're using. These just kind of have openings up on the sides, and I will lay that up on top like that, and then very carefully put my fingers all the way around it so I can't lose it. Once you hear it click, it's done. And then the next thing it's calling for you to do is to go ahead and push it through your shock cover. And pull it through. It'll be tight, but as you get some fluid and stuff in this, it'll get better. Now we're going to cut off one of these pieces. That is the bottom shock mount. We'll go ahead and thread it on. I will thread it on as much as I can by hand. They sell a special shock tool that some people use that basically is just a pair of pliers that are notched. But I'm just going to hold it right over there very lightly. It doesn't take a whole lot of tension. You don't want to do this with a set of pliers that you're going to notch and score the shaft with while doing this, because if doing so will score it and then it will tear your bushings up in there, and then you'll get leaks. But this specific pair of pliers I have are smooth right here at the very tip. So now that I've got that part accomplished, next it's asking to put the ball end in, which same thing we was using in our upper and lower links on the ends. You just push it there, then it settles. Alright, for the next part, it's going to call for adding our fluid and our top cap. And let me find the parts tree that I was originally working with, because it's going to have the fake reservoir part. And you don't have to do the reservoir. You get 2 cap options. You get a straight cap right there, or one that does the fake reservoir. I'm going to assume a lot of people are going to want to use the fake reservoir, so I'm going to go ahead and do the fake reservoir assembly. You get there's 4 screws that came in this bag when you opened it. What you do is on the reservoir barrel, slide that up through there, and then it's got a notch that the screw will go into, and you just tighten it like so. Okay, now there's 4 tiny black O-rings. A lot of people will lay them on top of the shock right there after you fill it with fluid. I'm going to go ahead and lay mine inside and push it where it needs to sit and rest. That way it's already there and I don't pinch it or get it to roll over when I do this. The kit comes with 30 weight oil. That is enough to do all your shocks, and you'll have a little bit left over. I usually run a different weight oil, but for the build I'm going to go ahead and continue to use what they sent us. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit, and now I need to thread this down a little more. Sorry about that, guys. Give this room for the shock cap to thread on. That's something to keep in mind. Your shock cap's going to thread down so far, and you need to be able to leave you some room for that. So now for this part, just squeeze it lightly. I try to do it slow. The key is you don't want very many air bubbles in it. The least amount of air bubbles in this, the more fluid and better your shocks will fill. Fill that to the top. Now slowly push your piston in. Go all the way to the top. You may get a little bit overflows. Shouldn't be much. But once you get that to the top, slowly pull it back down. Don't go too fast with it. Take your time, be patient. And what that's doing is bleeding any air bubble that may have been in there out. And then once you have done that, I already got the O-ring inserted into that part. Once you have done that, then you're going to want to tighten that up like so. Now it's calling to add the spring to it. Comes with 4 springs in the package. Sometimes some of the kits do the dual rate springs. The last few that I've built have done the single rate, which honestly I don't think one works better than the other. I think it's all about the same, and most people tune them into their specific likings. Alright, now that we're doing this, they sent the I do not see, I'm just double checking. Alright. They've got the set for front and rear specific. Front one gets the heavier spring that you can tell by looking at them. Front one's calling for the heavier spring. That's going to be because of all the weight of the battery and stuff in the front. The rear ones are going to get the thinner ones. On your kit, you're going to want to cut these pieces here off now. They're what hold your springs on to the bottom of the shock. I'm going to assume actually you'll continue with the same parts tree, because this does have the little individual things that used to set the spring there, and then the other one on the other side when you did the dual rate spring. They still have it on the parts tree, but it's not needed. So now for this part, you're just going to slide your spring over like that, pull it up a little bit, push that in over. It's got a notch. Most people will know that, but just in case somebody doesn't, there's a slight notch. Slide it over, push it down, and we have a shock built. Doesn't feel too stiff, feels pretty good. The fluid feels fine in it. And if when you're running it on your vehicle you feel like it's too soft for you for the weight, you can thread this down, and that'll compress and bring your spring down that way, which will allow it to be a stiffer setup. Alright, we're 14 minutes or so into this. I'm going to build the rest of the shocks off camera and then come back and build the transmission. So thank you for watching. Continue following my build series if you like. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will answer anything I can. Just comment in the comment section. Please like, subscribe. Appreciate you watching. Thank you.